Single mother arrived to find 5 siblings and no one who believed in them, but she became their faith. The rain hammered against the windshield as Maria Rodriguez pulled into the gravel driveway of the group home. Through the blur of water and exhaustion, she could make out the weathered Victorian house that would become her new workplace. At 34, with her own 8-year-old daughter Sophia waiting at her mother's house, Maria had taken this job as a last resort. 3 months behind on rent, with her nursing degree still incomplete, and her ex-husband's child support payments as reliable as a broken clock, she needed steady work. The job posting had been sparse: residential care worker needed for challenging placement, experience with trauma-affected children preferred. Overnight shifts available. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but it offered something Maria desperately needed: hope for stability. Mrs. Henderson, the placement coordinator, met her at the door. Her weathered face told stories of too many difficult conversations, too many children who had slipped through the system's cracks. "I'll be honest with you, Maria," she said, leading her through hallways that smelled of industrial cleaning supplies and something indefinable, perhaps resignation. "These 5 have been through 4 placements in 18 months, the Torres siblings, ages 6 to 16. They've been labeled everything from behaviorally challenged to unadoptable." Maria's stomach tightened, but she nodded. She understood labels. She'd worn a few herself: teenage mother, high school dropout, welfare recipient. She knew how quickly society could write someone off. The first thing Maria noticed when she entered the common room was the silence. Not peaceful quiet, but the heavy silence of children who had learned that making noise brought attention they didn't want. 5 pairs of eyes looked up at her with expressions she recognized: weariness mixed with the faint flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this adult might be different. "This is Miguel," Miss Henderson said, gesturing to a lanky 16-year-old who sat apart from the others, his dark hair falling across his eyes. "He's been the de facto parent since their mother passed 2 years ago. Before that, well, let's just say she had her struggles." Miguel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Maria caught it because she'd perfected the same expression during her own difficult years. "Elena is 14, Mrs. Henderson continued, indicating a girl with her mother's delicate features and her brother's guarded expression. "She was doing well in school before all this started. Now she refuses to go most days." Elena's arms were crossed tightly across her chest, her fingernails bitten down to the quick. Maria noticed a small sketch pad peeking out from under her leg. The twins Carlos and Carmen are 11. The 2 children sat close together on a worn couch, mirror images of each other with their serious dark eyes and too small clothes. They barely speak anymore, except to each other. Finally, Mrs. Henderson's voice softened slightly. "And little Lucy, she's 6, but the trauma has set her back developmentally. Nightmares, regression, the works." Lucia was tiny for her age, curled up in an oversized armchair with a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Her thumb was in her mouth, and she studied Maria with the old soul eyes that some children develop too early. "Previous workers have tried everything," Mrs. Henderson continued as they moved to the kitchen. "Behavior charts, reward systems, firm boundaries, therapeutic intervention. Nothing seems to reach them. They're resistant to connection. The last worker called them emotionally unavailable." Maria felt a familiar anger rise in her chest. She'd heard similar words about herself once, from a school counselor who couldn't understand why a pregnant 16-year-old might have trust issues. "When do I start?" she asked. Mrs. Henderson looked surprised. "Don't you want to think about it? These children require someone who can handle significant behavioral challenges. There have been incidents of running away, fighting, property damage." "When do I start?" Maria repeated. That evening, after Miss Henderson left and the day shift worker briefed her on medications, bedtime routines and emergency procedures, Maria found herself alone with the 5 Torres siblings. The house felt enormous and oppressive, filled with the accumulated sadness of too many broken childhoods. She started in the kitchen, making herself coffee and taking inventory of the sparse pantry. Through the doorway, she could see Miguel hovering protectively near his siblings, ready to intervene if this new adult proved threatening. "Anyone hungry?" she called out. Silence. "I make really good grilled cheese." She tried again. "My daughter Sophia always says they're the best part of rainy nights." This time she caught Carmen's head lifting slightly, though the girl quickly looked down again when Miguel shot her a warning glance. Maria pulled ingredients from the refrigerator, keeping up a gentle stream of conversation directed at no one in particular. She talked about Sophia's latest obsession with horses, about the funny way the rain sounded different on different parts of the roof, about how she'd once burned dinner so badly the smoke alarm became their dinner bell for a week. Gradually she became aware of movement. Small feet on linoleum. When she turned, Lucia was standing in the doorway, rabbit clutched tightly, thumb firmly planted in her mouth. "Hello, beautiful," Maria said softly. "Want to help me with these sandwiches?" Lucia didn't respond, but she didn't leave either. Maria continued working, occasionally asking Lucia to hand her the butter or point to the cheese. Each small interaction was answered with a solemn nod or gesture. No words, but engagement nonetheless. When she called everyone for dinner, they came reluctant. Miguel served his siblings with the efficiency of long practice, cutting Lucia's sandwich into small triangles, making sure Carmen got the piece with the most cheese. He watched Maria carefully, cataloging her every movement, ready to step in if needed. "Miguel," Maria said gently, "you can eat too, I've got them." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I always make sure they eat first." "I know. I can see what a good job you've been doing taking care of everyone. But tonight, you're 11 years old. Tonight, you can just be a kid." Something flickered across his face too quickly to interpret, but he took a bite of his sandwich. The next few weeks established a routine that was part careful navigation, part gentle persistence. Maria arrived each evening with small offerings, a new book she thought Elena might like, ingredients for the twins to help her bake cookies, hair ties for Carmen's unruly curls. Nothing expensive or elaborate, just small acknowledgments that she saw them as individual. The breakthrough came on a Thursday night in October. Lucia had awakened screaming from another nightmare, and Miguel was already moving toward her room when Maria gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let me try," she said. He hesitated, every instinct telling him to protect his baby sister, but exhaustion won out. He nodded. Maria found Lucia sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, calling for Mammy in a voice that broke Maria's heart. Without asking permission, Maria sat on the edge of the bed and began humming a lullaby her own mother had sung, a Mexican song about angels watching over sleeping children. Lucia's cries gradually subsided into hiccups. Maria kept humming, occasionally adding soft words in Spanish. When Lucia finally lay back down, Maria stayed, continuing her gentle song until the little girl's breathing evened out. She was rising to leave when she heard Miguel's voice from the doorway. "That's the first time she's slept through the night after a nightmare in 2 years." They stood in the darkened hallway, two young people carrying burdens too heavy for their ages. "You don't have to do it all alone," Maria said quietly. Miguel's composure cracked just slightly. "Yes, I do. They're my responsibility. They're children. You're a child. You all deserve to be taken care of." "By who?" The question was asked with the bitter wisdom of someone who had learned not to depend on adults. "Everyone leaves. Everyone gives up on us." Maria studied his face in the dim light from Lucia's nightlight. She saw Sophia's future there if she didn't get things right, if she couldn't provide the stability her daughter needed. "I'm not everyone," she said finally. November brought the first real test. Elena had been caught shoplifting art supplies from a drugstore, and the other workers suggested involving juvenile authorities as a learning experience. The placement coordinator called it a pattern of escalating behavior that needed intervention. Maria requested a meeting with just Elena. They sat in the girls' room, surrounded by sketches that revealed a talent that took Maria's breath away. Detailed drawings of her siblings, of birds in flight, of faces full of emotion and life. "These are incredible," Maria said, meaning it. "You're really gifted." Elena shrugged, but Maria caught the faint flush of pleasure. "Tell me about the art supplies." Silence. "Elena, I'm not here to punish you. I want to understand." Finally, barely audible, "They were for Miguel's birthday. I wanted to draw him something nice, but the good pencils are expensive, and we don't get allowance because we're too behavioral." Maria felt her heart clench. "Why didn't you ask me? I would have helped you get supplies. Because you would have left before his birthday anyway. They always do." The matter-of-fact way Elena said it was devastating. This 14-year-old girl had planned for abandonment, had tried to steal rather than risk the vulnerability of asking for help. "What if I promised you I'm not going anywhere?" Elena's laugh was bitter. "Adults don't keep promises to kids like us." That evening, Maria went to 3 different art supply stores until she found exactly what Elena needed: professional-grade pencils, quality paper, a small set of watercolors. She also bought a cake mix and party decorations for Miguel's birthday the following week. When she presented the supplies to Elena, the girl stared at them as if they might disappear. "This doesn't erase what I did," Elena said carefully. "No, but it shows me how much you love your brother. It's not something to be ashamed of." Elena's carefully constructed walls cracked. For the first time since Maria had met her, the 14-year-old cried. Miguel's birthday party was a small affair, just the siblings, Maria, and a chocolate cake that the twins had helped decorate with enthusiastic if uneven lettering. When Miguel opened Elena's gift, a stunning charcoal portrait of their family, drawn from memory, he stared at it for a long moment before pulling his sister into a rare hug. "You remembered Mammy's smile, right?" he whispered. "I had help," Elena said, glancing at Maria. Later that evening, as Maria was cleaning up wrapping paper and cake crumbs, Miguel approached her. "The other workers never stayed for birthdays," he said. "Well, I'm not the other workers." "No," he agreed thoughtfully. "You're not." December brought new challenges. Carmen started having panic attacks at school, triggered by loud noises that reminded her of the chaos of their early childhood. Carlos began acting out, picking fights with other children and destroying his belongings. Lucia regressed further, losing recently gained language skills and refusing to use the bathroom independently. Other staff members began expressing doubt. At a team meeting, Maria found herself defending her approach against suggestions that the children needed more structure and firmer boundaries. "They're not misbehaving," she insisted. "They're traumatized. They need safety and consistency, not punishment." "Your coddling approach isn't working," snapped Janet, the day shift supervisor. "These children need to learn that there are consequences for their actions." "They've already learned that," Maria said quietly. "They've learned that adults abandon them, that expressing needs leads to rejection, that the world is fundamentally unsafe. What they haven't learned is that some adults can be trusted." The breaking point came 2 days before Christmas. Maria arrived to find Elena missing, and the other children huddled together in the common room. Miguel, looking haggard and desperate. She ran away after Janet told her she was too old for childish art projects, and threw away the picture she was drawing. Miguel explained, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "She's been gone since this morning." Maria felt a cold fear settle in her stomach. Elena was street smart but emotionally fragile, and December nights were dangerous for a young girl alone. Where would she go? "There's a park where we used to go with Mammy," Carlos said quietly. "She always said if anything happened, we should meet there." Maria grabbed her coat. "I'm going to find her." "Miguel, can you watch the others?" "I'm coming with you," Miguel said. "You need to stay with your siblings." "Elena is my sister too." His voice carried the authority of someone who had been making impossible decisions for years. "I'm coming." They found Elena on a bench in the small neighborhood park, her sketchpad in her lap, fingers blue with cold. She was drawing by streetlight, tears freezing on her cheeks as she worked. "Elena," Maria approached slowly, as if the girl might bolt. "Sweetheart, we've been looking for you." "I'm not going back," Elena said without looking up. "I can't take care of myself. I don't need them." Miguel sat down beside his sister. "We need you. I need you." "Janet's right. I'm too old for art. I'm too old for hoping things might get better." Maria sat on Elena's other side. "Can I see what you're drawing?" Reluctantly, Elena tilted the sketchpad. It was a drawing of their house. Not the group home, but some idealized vision of what home could be. A place with light in the windows, a garden, children playing in the yard. "This is beautiful," Maria said softly. "This is hope. Hope is stupid. Maybe, but it's also brave, and you're one of the bravest people I know." Elena finally looked at her. "You're just saying that because it's your job." "No, I'm saying that because it's true. Because in 2 months, you've taught me more about strength and love than I learned in 34 years. Because watching you take care of your family, seeing how talented you are, seeing how much you love despite everything that's happened to you, it makes me believe in things I thought I'd given up on." "Like what?" Maria chose her words carefully. "Like the idea that families aren't just about blood. Like the idea that home is something you build with the people you love. Like the idea that sometimes the most broken people are the ones who love the most fiercely." They sat in silence for a moment, breath visible in the cold air. "If I come back," Elena said finally, "Janet's going to make everything worse. Then we'll deal with Janet," Maria said. Together. The confrontation with Janet came the next day. Maria requested a meeting with Mrs. Henderson, laying out months of documentation about the children's progress under her care. Lucia's language returning, the twins opening up, Miguel starting to act like a teenager instead of a parent, Elena's artistic development. They need stability, Maria argued. They need to know that the adults in their lives aren't going to give up on them the moment things get difficult. "And what are you proposing?" Mrs. Henderson asked. "Let me take primary responsibility for their care. Remove Janet from the case. Give me the authority to make decisions about their daily lives. That's highly irregular. You're relatively new, and these children require experienced intervention. These children require someone who believes in them." Mrs. Henderson studied the documentation Maria had provided. "And if things don't improve, they will," Maria said with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Because I'm not going anywhere." Christmas morning arrived grey and cold, but the house felt different. Maria had worked overtime shifts for a month to afford gifts for each child, art supplies for Elena, a guitar for Miguel who had mentioned loving music, books for the twins, and a new stuffed animal for Lucia. More importantly, she had new. "I wanted to tell you all something," she said as they sat surrounded by wrapping paper and the remains of Christmas breakfast. "I've talked to Mrs. Henderson, and she's agreed to let me become your primary caregiver. That means I'll be making decisions about your care, and I'll be here every day." The silence that followed was different from their usual weariness. This was shock. "What does that mean exactly?" Miguel asked carefully. "It means I'm not going anywhere. It means when you have problems at school, you come to me. When you have nightmares, I'm. When you need someone to believe in you, I'm that person." Lucia spoke for the first time in weeks. "Promise?" Maria knelt down to the little girl's level. "I promise." The months that followed weren't easy. There were setbacks, nights when Miguel retreated into protective silence, days when Elena's anger at the world overwhelmed her ability to trust, moments when the twins seemed to disappear inside themselves, times when Lucia's trauma manifested in ways that broke Maria's heart. But there were victories too. Small ones at first. Carmen laughing at one of Maria's terrible jokes. Carlos asking for help with homework. Elena showing Maria a new drawing. Miguel calling her Maria instead of Miss Rodriguez. The biggest change came in March, when Lucia started kindergarten. The little girl who had been too traumatized to speak was now reading above grade level and had made her first friend, a boy named David, who shared her love of horses. "Miss Maria," Lucia said one evening, snuggled against her side during story time. "Are you our new mama?" The question hung in the air. Miguel tensed, waiting for the answer that would define their future. "I'm your Maria," she said carefully. I'm the person who loves you and takes care of you and believes in you. What you call me isn't as important as what we are to each other." "What are we to each other?" Elena asked from the doorway. Maria looked around at these 5 children who had taught her so much about resilience, about love, about what family really meant. "We're family," she said simply, "not because anyone gave us permission, but because we chose each other. Because when the world said you were too difficult to love, I looked at you and saw children worth fighting for. Because when life told me I was too broken to make a difference, you showed me I was exactly what you needed." Miguel was 16 when he graduated high school as valedictorian. His speech about resilience and the power of believing in people bringing tears to Maria's eyes. Elena was accepted to art school with a full scholarship. Her portfolio focused on portraits of family, not just the Torres siblings, but Maria and Sofia too, who had become as much a part of their story as anyone. The twins started high school with confidence Maria had never imagined possible. Carlos on the debate team and Carmen in advanced mathematics. Lucia, now 10, was a thriving elementary student who still suffered nightmares occasionally, but who knew exactly who to call for comfort. At Miguel's graduation party, Mrs. Henderson approached Maria. "I have to ask," she said, "what did you do differently? 5 children who were considered unadoptable are now thriving. Miguel's going to college. Elena's artistic talent has been recognized nationally. The twins are honor students, and Lucia is a different child entirely." Maria watched her family, because that's what they had become, laughing together over cake, teasing Miguel about his valedictory speech, planning Elena's going-away party for art school. "I didn't do anything differently," she said. "I just refused to give up on them. I became their faith when they had none left for themselves. And now," Maria smiled, watching Lucia help Sofia with a puzzle, while Miguel played guitar and Elena sketched the scene. "Now they have faith in themselves, and in each other, and in the idea that family isn't something you're born into. It's something you choose, every day, by showing up and loving people even when it's hard." Sofia, now 12 and as much a Torres sibling as anyone born with the name, looked up from her puzzle. "Mom, Miguel says he's going to teach me guitar this summer. Is that so?" Maria asked, catching Miguel's grin. "Someone has to make sure the family tradition continues," he said. "What tradition is that?" "Taking care of each other," Elena said from across the room, not looking up from her sketch. "No matter what." As evening fell, and the house settled into its familiar rhythm of homework and quiet conversations, Maria found herself in the kitchen, making her nightly coffee, listening to the sounds of her family. 6 years ago, she had walked into this house a desperate single mother, looking for steady work. What she had found instead was purpose, love, and the profound truth that sometimes the most broken people are exactly what each other needs. The official adoption papers had been finalized 3 months ago, making legal what had been true in their hearts for years, but the real adoption had happened gradually, in shared meals and whispered conversations, in birthday parties and homework help, in the daily choice to love and believe, and show up. Lucia appeared in the doorway, rabbit tucked under one arm, a drawing in her hand. "For you," she said, presenting Maria with a crayon masterpiece labeled "My Family." In the center was a house, not the group home where they'd met, but their current home, the small 4-bedroom place Maria had saved to rent when it became clear the children weren't going anywhere. Around the house were 6 stick figures holding hands, all drawn with careful attention to detail. Miguel's height, Elena's long hair, the twins' matching faces, Lucia's small stature, and in the center, a figure labeled Mama Maria. "It's beautiful, Mia," Maria said, kneeling to hug her youngest daughter. "Absolutely perfect." Later that night, after everyone was asleep, Maria sat in her bedroom looking at Lucia's drawing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Elena was nervous about leaving for art school. Miguel was working 2 jobs to save for college. The twins were navigating the complicated social world of high school, and Lucia still occasionally woke up afraid that this life might disappear. But tonight, they were all home, all safe, all loved, all believing in themselves and in each other. 6 years ago, A social worker had told her these children were beyond help, too damaged by trauma to form healthy attachments. What that social worker hadn't understood was that healing happens in relationship, that love is the most powerful intervention, and that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to have faith in the face of hopelessness. Maria turned off the light and settled into sleep, listening to the sounds of her family breathing in rooms around her. Tomorrow, she would continue being their faith. But tonight, they were all believers. The little girl who had arrived with a stuffed rabbit and no words now fell asleep every night knowing she was loved. The teenager who had carried the weight of caring for 4 siblings on his shoulders was learning to dream of his own future. The artist who had been told her talents were worthless was preparing to share her gift with the world. The twins who had disappeared into protective silence were finding their voices. And the single mother who had taken a job as a last resort had discovered that sometimes, when you're brave enough to believe in people others have given up on, you don't just change their lives, you discover who you were always meant to be. In the morning, there would be breakfast to make, lunches to pack, homework to check, and dreams to encourage. There would be the ongoing work of healing, of growing, of facing whatever challenges lay ahead. But tonight, they were simply a family, chosen and cherished, proof that faith has the power to transform, not just individual lives, but the very definition of what love can accomplish when it refuses to give up.